Hi, it's your old buddy Tim Brubaker, and today we're going to demonstrate how to make an aluminum window screen. The same rules apply if you're just replacing the screen in one that's been damaged, either the frame's bent or holes are poked into the screen or whatever. So we're going to show you from scratch how to fabricate a screen out of easily obtainable parts you can get at your local hardware store, home center. This is the aluminum frame that makes up the channel, and this is a fiberglass screen, charcoal colored. They have a variety of colors, and you can also get them out of aluminum. We use charcoal fiberglass because that's what exists in our home already. So we've got the other tools you might need that would be helpful. Something to cut the screen with, either some big shears like that, or a utility knife like that. That comes in handy. You need this anyway to trim the screen when you get finished. A small drill. This is a impact wrench, but I'm using it as a drill because it's just much lighter than a drill. A few bits, and I'll explain why you need those in a little bit. And most importantly is a roller, a screen roller. This rolls the spline into the channel when you're ready to make everything come together. All right, we've already determined the dimensions we're going to use to make our screen. Whatever you measure on the width and the height of the screen, before you cut the frame pieces, you subtract 1.5 inches from the width and the height. And that's to allow for the butt joints and these little corner angles that are 3/4 of an inch each. So you've got 3/4 over here, 3/4 here, so you subtract 1.5 inches. So if you've got a 32.5 inch opening wide by 62.5 inch tall, you take 1.5 inches off each one of those, you're going to make a 31 by 61 frame. So that's not the dimensions in our case. Ours involves fractions because it's just the way the world is. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways to cut this. First, I've already measured the length I need here and subtracted 1.5 inches. In my case, it's 30 5/8 inches. There's a couple of ways to cut this. One, you can use a hacksaw and a little cheap miter box to make sure you make a nice straight cut. However, that's not nearly as much fun as using electrical power. So if you follow me over here, I'll show you the lazy boy method. It has nothing to do with recliners and everything to do with saving time and energy. I just used a sawzall to make a cut. And for this, because it's a reciprocating saw, you have to use a really, really light touch. So I just barely get the saw moving and almost no pressure. Otherwise, you might damage this very thin aluminum stock. So there you go. We have some burrs here we'll clean off. That's what. Use a couple of little files here. You just square off. Rest this up a little bit to get any burrs off of it. Although I noticed one of the factory built ones that I rebuilt earlier had a bad screen on it, they didn't bother to do this little bit of cleanup work. So apparently it's not nearly as, because these screen corner angles are going to come in here and form a nice little end, cover the ends anyway, so it's not a real big deal. So you've got your 4 pieces cut out now, whether you used a hacksaw, a reciprocating saw, or a metal cutting bandsaw. So this is where it begins to look like really accomplishing something. You lay the pieces out here with all this is the spline channel here. This is where the little rubber spline holds the screen in place. Set this all down with all those spline channels facing up, and you grab your little corner angles and you just insert them in here. Something a 5-year-old could do. Okay, maybe a 6-year-old, but it's easy to do. So this is the Tinker Toy part. Very simple. And it makes nice 90-degree corners for you. Yeah, that's real simple, isn't it? There you go. Making it look harder than it is here. And as you can see, we are done. We have a nice flat corner here. That's our frame. So you see the pieces were originally this length, but we add 3/4 of an inch. That's where we get that 1.5 inches we have to add because of these corner braces. So once you get that, you need to have some way to retain the screen in the opening. And the kind we use that pre-existed in this home were these little plunger type pieces here, where this fits up through a hole and then this snaps on the top. then you're able to pull down on this to release the spring pressure to allow the screen to come in and out of the opening. It just holds it in there. It's not really a security device. All it takes is one push with a 5-year-old's hand and the screen comes out anyway. So this is not meant to lock the screen in place from burglars. So the way I do that, Miss Camera Lady, if you'll come around here, we've got to drill some holes in the base of the screen, or the top rather. And to do that, I like to keep them all uniform, so I measure in from each side. So to begin with, I'm going to take my 1/16 inch drill bit and drill a pilot hole. Okay. Alright, there's one pilot hole. And we'll do the same thing down here. Nice and level. Okay, so we take the pilot bit out and drill our next size, and yours may vary. These were the ones that were available with us for us from Lowe's. And so what I'm doing is measuring. I'm drilling a hole the diameter of this shaft here. So in my case, I think it was like 7/64. Whatever this bit here is what it turned out to be. So I'm going to follow those original pilot holes with this larger bit. So all I did was go right through the same holes. Just like that. And I've got one more hole to drill, and that's for the large end here, the plunger end. Yeah, it's a much larger side. I think it's 11/64 or something like that. But that was a couple of days ago, so I've forgotten what the exact fraction was. And all I'm going to do here is just drill this outside edge. And that's just to house the big end of this plunger. So I'm just enlarging the outer hole there. Just very little pressure, just barely, just like that. Okay, once you've got your holes drilled, now you can put this. Oh, actually, before you do that, grab your little file, because it's just a nice thing to get rid of all these burrs that result from the drilling. I noticed on my store-bought custom-made ones that I rehabbed today that weren't sized exactly correctly for the opening, they didn't bother to do that. So it's probably overkill. Again, you got to keep the OCD monster at bay. So that's part of what's going on there. So see how that snaps into play, goes right in there, just like that. That's what you want. That's why it's important to dry fit all the stuff. That's what we want to see. Okay, the frame is finished. So we're going to flip it back over to where the spline channel is facing up. And now we're going to tape this into place so it doesn't move around on us while we move with the screen in. So just put a little tape just to keep the frame from wandering around while we're trying to work it. I know what you're saying. Wow, how did that tape just happen to be right on the side of your workbench like that? Magic, just magic. So cut your screen fabric to where it's just slightly larger than the overall frame. It gives you a little bit of slop on any edge, so just slightly larger than the frame itself. And now you want to tape two adjacent sides of the screen in place. This is because the screen's going to tend to want to draw towards the opposite channel as you put that in. So we're going to prevent that from happening. Camera lady, I shorted myself one piece of tape. Okay. You don't have to use duct tape, but I used package sealing tape for the first few, and then I found where all the rolls of duct tape were, so I used that. Alrighty, so now you've got everything laid out, and you're almost ready to press the screen into the spline. One little thing you need to do, because when you make a corner with this, just like you would be with fabric if you were doing upholstery, you need to cut this on a 45 because there's nowhere for this all to bunch up and go if you don't. And you want to cut the 45 just outside the outer edge of the corner there where the screen's going to fit. Just like that. On all four corners, you want to do that. And look what old Timmy did here. See, that messed himself up. Okay. Yeah, just about messed up putting my tape on first. I should have cut all this first. Okay. All right, now prep work is done. We're ready to roll the spline into the channel. And this is almost finished. So we'll lay out a little bit of the spline here. And we're going to start on one of the sides that we did not apply the tape to the screen. So I'll start down here because I'm somewhat left-handed. And the screen roller usually has two edges, one concave edge and one convex. For this purpose, we're using the convex pulley here. And we'll start our spline down in the channel by hand, press it there, and then roll her in like that. Okay, and then we'll make a little 90 here. Go up the other edge like this. This is the fun part because it's, and you'll have a little bump wherever you go over the spring retainers. They're actually, the shaft of this is in the groove partially, so you have a little bump where your spline doesn't go all the way down into the recess in the channel. That's okay. That's the way that works. Okay, you got two sides done. Now you remove the tape from where you've taped it down, because now you want the screen to move into this channel here. So lay out your spline again. So make a corner, force it into that corner like that. Get the concave side of your roller in place and force it in. This is much easier than I'm making it look right now. Okay, like so. Make your last 90 degree here. And again with the concave side of this, just roll this side into the channel. Like so. Take your utility knife, cut off the spline, just like that. I want to tuck that end in because the roller doesn't go into this corner very tightly, so take a little screwdriver or something. Just make sure the spline is down in the channel in the deep part of the corners. I don't know that anybody actually does that at the hardware store, but again, that's an OCD moment. And now all that remains is to take your razor knife, being careful not to cut your thumb, and trim off the excess. It's important that it's sharp. Apparently I've got this one after about 15 screens. This one's gotten a little dull. And hold on, because we're almost finished. All you got to do is untape all the mess. Little housekeeping here and there. And you have a completed screen. Get all the rest of the waste off of here. And that looks just like Grandma used to make. The inside of your screen with the little, alrighty, there's the little plungers that go on the top when you put it in, and you pull down to release the tension. So how about that? That's how you do that. Now if you were just replacing the screen, this is actually even easier. You don't have to make the frame. Say your grandkids, bless their hearts, have poked holes in your screens, having a lot of fun, as they should. All you have to do is take a screwdriver, pry the spline out of the channel, zip it out, pull the old screen that's been poked by various toys, throw it away. Again, just cut a new piece of screen slightly larger than the frame, get some new spline, and sometimes you can even use the old spline if it's not rotted, and do the same thing. Tape it in place on 2 sides, and then begin running the spline down the channel. Untape it, finish the spline, and you're good to go. That's way easy because you don't have to fool with cutting and filing and things like that. So I think that's everything for this particular project. And thank you to my camera lady, Mrs. Rhonda Brubaker, my beloved and lovely wife, for doing the filming again.